Hit it.
Rick, let's hear some of that theme song you've been making.
Here it is. Movies. Movies. Movies with Ron.
Yeah, okay.
Back to the drawing board.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I'm not.
We'd probably like it better if we were all on ecstasy. We should do that.
Ooh.
I don't do drugs.
No, he's right. We don't.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Movies with Ron, your weekly podcast where we recap the movies. We don't review them. There's no film analysis.
Story snobbery.
We fucking ruin them for you.
Goddamn right.
My name's Chris. Across from me is Rick.
Hola.
And next to him is Mr. Ron.
Hey, guys.
All right. Can I recommend a movie to you guys?
Fuck yeah.
It's on Netflix. It's called... This is for you listeners out there. If you got Netflix, you might borrow your friend's password, or maybe you like to torrent stuff. Not saying you should, but it's called Housebound.
I told you to watch that movie like a while ago.
Really?
Hell yeah, man. That movie, I love that shit.
The scary, funny?
Yeah.
Seriously?
This was like 6 months ago.
That's a good fucking movie,
I know.
man.
That's what I said to you.
Oh, jeez.
And then you were like, yeah, whatever.
I don't remember that shit.
It happened.
All right. You guys listening out there, check out Housebound. There's no one famous in it. It's made in New Zealand. You might need to turn on subtitles at some point, but I loved it. All right. Anybody else got anything?
Saw a whole shit ton of previews. You seen the new Magnificent Seven?
Saw the preview.
Yeah, it looks okay. Chris Pratt, Denzel.
Yeah.
The Accountant. I've talked about that before. Man, I want to see that movie.
Yeah, it looks pretty
Man,
good.
that is looking real good. There's another one called Hacksaw Ridge. Okay. You know anything about that? It's got like all of these weird stars in it. And the star of the movie is that Garfield kid who played the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he's like a soldier who doesn't want to kill. And he turns out to be like this, like, the great hero. He like saves everybody. And that one fucking guy from Clash of the Titans, he's in it.
Sam Worthington.
Yeah.
It's directed by Mel Gibson.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That'll probably be amazing then.
Yeah, it probably will.
Is it a pretty serious movie?
Yeah.
I don't like that Garfield guy.
Yeah, you know. Sam Worthington, though.
All right.
Yeah.
Where the fuck has he been? Making Avatar movies, that's
Yeah.
what. Any other previews?
There was a whole bunch of them, but those are the only ones I want to talk about.
All right, what'd you go see?
Hell or High Water.
All right.
Fuck yeah. This is a pretty good movie, man.
Yeah?
Yeah. Lots of people are trying to compare it to, what's it called?
No Country for Old Men?
Yeah, but it's like two totally different kinds of movies.
Does it take place in the Wild West?
No, just modern day West Texas.
Oh.
You lived in Texas.
I did.
Seems pretty cool.
Oh, it's a great place.
Yeah.
But I read that this movie was not filmed in
Yeah,
Texas.
like not one scene of it. Okay, so here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Hell or High Water. So we start with shots of small town Texas life. You know, a lot of old dusty shit, rundown. The director like makes a point to like show this a lot in the movie, and he makes it look real depressing. And then we see this dusty old blue sports car just like speeding down the road, and it's like early on in the morning, and shows up to a bank called Texas Midlands Bank. Okay, and then two masked robbers get out. And there's this lady who's getting there, and she's going into work. And as she's opening up for the morning, walking in, they come in, they get her, you know, with guns and shit like that, and they hold her hostage, and they're like, yep, you know what? Give us all the money, bitch. And she's all, what the fuck are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, give us the money out of the drawers. And she's like, there's no money in the drawers. I just opened up, okay? It's all in the vault, or it's all in the safe, so, you know, and I don't have keys for that. The manager does. And she's like, so, you know, why don't y'all just leave? Because the only thing you're guilty of right now is being stupid. So, why don't you just go? And then one of the robbers, who are brothers, are like, did you fucking call me stupid? And then the other guy's like, okay, well, when does the manager get here? She's like, obviously you guys are new to this. He gets here at 8. And he's like, all right. So then they like hide beside the door, waiting for the manager to walk in. And then the first brother's like, you're stupid. He says it to the lady. And so then the manager walks in, and the lady's just sitting on the floor. The manager walks in, and he's like, oh, God, so-and-so, are you okay? And then one of the robbers puts a gun in his face, and he's like, good morning. And the guy's like, what the fuck? And he just smashes him in the fucking face with the gun. So then it cuts to them doing their getaway, okay? They took the money out of the drawers, or only loose bills. That's their whole thing, is they won't take any packs of money. So there's no die packs.
Yeah.
All right, so they only take loose bills. So then they're driving away, and that's when you find out that they're brothers. She's always calling him little brother and shit like that. And they immediately go to like the next town over, and they go to the next bank. And there's this guy who is, there's an old guy who's like, I just found all these coins in my barn, and I've been living on shit, and I didn't know these were here. And then the teller's like, oh, this could be a fortune. You don't know, collector's items. And then they come in with guns, and they're like, fucking give us all the money in the drawers. No, only loose bills. Come on. And the lady's all freaking out, and the guy's like, are you guys robbing this bank? He's like, yeah, that's what we're fucking doing. We're robbing the fucking bank, you moron. It's like, hey, what, old man, you got a gun on you? He's like, of course I got a gun on me. He's like, telling to his brother, get the gun. Get his gun, God damn it. Takes the gun away from him and just sets it on the counter, like right next to the guy. And so they get the money. He shoves like 100 down the shirt of the bank teller. He's like, thank you very much. And they leave. The guy just takes his gun back and starts shooting at him. Shoots out like the windows of the bank and everything. And then he's shooting at their car. And they drive away. Every time they're in the car together, you get that brother dynamic where they're fighting, but they also love each other.
Yeah.
They're arguing about shit like that. Like, why'd you put the gun on the counter, you dumb shit? And then it's like, boom, hell or high water. It's like, okay. And so then they drive to a farm, and it says Howard Family Ranch. And they drive up, and you just see like a backhoe and a whole bunch of farm equipment and shit like that. And they get out of the car, and they just push it down into a big pit that they have dug with the backhoe, and then they just bury it. I was like, damn, that's pretty good. And then we see Jeff Bridges, and he is a Texas Ranger, and he's about to retire. And his partner is a guy named Alberto, who's like half Mexican, half Native American. And Jeff Bridges is like, why are you always dressing like me? And they look the fucking same. They're Texas Rangers, okay? They're not wearing like cop uniforms or anything.
Yeah.
They're both wearing like tan dress shirts with red fucking polka dot ties. And he's like, why are you always dressing like me, man? He's like, look, we don't have a uniform. Just find a different collar shirt. And the guy's like, we're allowed to wear blue, tan, or white. It just stands to reason. Every once in a while, we're going to look the same. And he was like, no, that's not why you're doing that. And he, he's always making fun of him. He's old, and he's probably slightly racist. So he's always making fun of him being a Native American. And, you're Comanche blood, blah, blah, blah. And then it cuts to the brothers counting the money, and then they start talking about their mom. Apparently the mom died while Ben Foster was in jail. Brothers are Ben Foster and Chris Pine.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ben Foster was in jail, and their mom died. And Chris Pine has 2 sons, and he was, taking care of everybody when it all happened. Chris Pine ended up divorced, and he hasn't seen his sons in a while. Ben Foster's like looking at the hospital bed that she died in, and he's like, yeah. You can see he's like a little tormented by it. But he's like, fuck her. She never wanted anything to do with me anyway. And he's like, did she leave a will? He's like, yeah, but, don't worry about it. He's like, no, come on, what's up? Yeah, well, okay, well, she left everything to me. And I'm just gonna put everything in a trust for the boys. And he's like, yeah, she never forgave me for standing up to him. And you find out that they're talking about their dad and how they were always getting beat up by him and shit like that, and how fighting back only made the beatings last longer. Mm-hmm. And Chris Pine is like, yeah, we never did figure that out, did we? And then Ben Foster's like, yeah, I figured it out. That's why I shot him.
So that's why he was in prison?
Yeah, that's why he was in prison.
Okay.
Then we got Jeff Bridges investigating the first bank, and he's talking to the banker lady. He's like, so, I know they were wearing masks, but, could you tell anything about the cut, what race they were, Yeah, I know they were wearing masks, but could you tell what color they were? And she's like, their skin or their souls? And he's like, well, let's not talk about the souls just yet. How about the skin? And, I think they're white guys. They're from around here, blah, blah, blah. And they only took money from the drawers, so no dye packs. Yeah, smart. He's got a big old mustache in this movie, just like every other movie.
Yeah.
It's been years since we've seen Jeff Bridges' upper lip. Must be the cumin. It was chicken tikka. R.I.P.D., ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So he's like, I don't think these boys are done yet. And his partner's like, why? Well, because, they're only taking small bills and shit like that. They're saving up for something. So, they only got $7,000 out of this robbery. So, yeah, they're definitely not done. He's like, oh, well, I guess we'll see. So then Chris Pine, he's like, yeah, the boys are going to inherit everything, but the bank, owns the land, or the bank is about to repossess the farm, the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, they're going to inherit everything, but that's why they're trying to do this, to buy the land back from the bank, out from under all their loans.
Yeah.
Turns out they only need like $43,000. So Ben Foster is like, so man, how long's it been since you've seen the kids? He's like, a year. He's like, what the fuck, dude? If I were you, I'd go see them tonight, before we finish this. What if you end up dying or whatever? And he's like, yeah, no, I can't, because Deborah's so fucking crazy, blah, blah, blah. You know how much child support I owe her? He's like, you got enough in your front pocket to cover that shit. He's like, yeah, no, this isn't for that. And he's like, yeah, well, maybe we should go hit another branch, I mean, get enough to take care of that too. He's like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We'll work that out. Why did you agree to do this with me? And he's like, 'cause you asked, little brother. So like Ben Foster is like the criminal brother who still loves Chris Pine,
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Pine was the Dudley Do-Right brother.
Okay.
Who had kids and just had a bad marriage. Got stuck, taking care of everybody. So while they're having this conversation, they're in like an IHOP or some little restaurant or whatever. And then Ben Foster's like, oh, I got a shit. Get the check. Okay. So then while he's being given the check by Katie Mixon, who is the waitress. You know who she is?
She in a show I've seen?
She's the sister from Mike and Molly.
Oh, yeah. I like her.
Yeah, I like her too. She shows up in movies every once in a while, and 9 times out of 10, she's a waitress.
Yeah.
So you can tell she likes Chris Pine. And she's like, yeah, finish your food, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm sad. And, they're talking. She's flirting with him a little bit. And he's like, I don't know how to talk back to you. And at that point, Ben Foster, instead of going to take a shit, has run across the street to rob the bank across the street. And all there is just this one little teller girl in there. And he's like, come on now. And he gets the money. And Chris Pine pays the check. And he leaves her like $200. Okay.
Yeah.
And as he's going out to his car, Ben Foster's just like, start the car! And he's running. He's got all this cash like flying out of his shirt because he didn't have a bag or anything with him. He did have his mask, though, so that's what, he wasn't on camera.
All right.
He was on camera, but not his face. Chris Pine's like, fuck, now we got to bury this car. And he's like, nah, man, we'll just use this one at the next one. He's like, no, I am not driving a stolen fucking car, bank robber car, to the next town over. It's not happening. So they have to go back and bury it. That's when Jeff Bridges gets the call for the second robbery. Also, when Jeff Bridges was at the first bank, he was like, yeah, well, you guys got video? And the manager's like, no. He's like, what the hell? What kind of a bank is this? Well, we're switching our video over, blah, blah, blah. And the second bank that they robbed with the old guy who had the coins, turns out they didn't have video either because none of the Texas Midlands banks, their video wasn't working. Yeah. He was like, don't they sell some kind of recording devices at Walmart? So he's sitting there talking with his partner about how he's about to retire. His partner's like, you need a hobby. He's like, no, man, I ain't got shit. Like, well, you like fishing? He's like, no, not every day. Who knows? Maybe this last case, maybe things will get ugly and I'll get to go out in a blaze of glory. And he's like, yeah, good. That would be good. They're always fucking with each other, but you can tell that they're good partners. So then we cut to Ben Foster's trailer that he lives in out on the middle of some other ranch. He's like, yeah, I get to live here for free for shooting coyotes, keep the guy's land free of that shit. So he's got a whole bunch of guns and rifles, and he's picking them all up. And the guy's like, his brother is like, why? No, man, we don't need all these guns. We're not killing people. He's like, this is my livelihood. I can't leave this shit in the trailer like this. So then we get Jeff Bridges interviewing the girl for the last teller, and
From the third bank?
yeah, the third bank.
How much time has passed?
Probably a day.
Okay.
Yeah, they did 3 banks the first day. He's like, did we get it on video? The manager of that bank, which is a whole different branch, he's like, yeah, what kind of a bank would we be if we didn't have video? He's like, you would be a Texas Midlands bank. That's what you would be. So then Jeff Bridges is like, all right, Alberto, you take their statements, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go across the street and get me a burger at this restaurant. And he's like, get me something to eat. And he's like, I don't think they serve pemmican. Do you know what that is?
Beef jerky with a Native American on it.
Yeah. Their interaction is like full of shit like that.
I want a pemmican sponsorship.
So then he goes in to the restaurant, and there's some good old boys like sitting there eating. You guys been here a while? Long enough to see that bank get robbed? Well, tell me what the guy looked like. Well, they were sitting right over here and blah, 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 white guys. And then he's talking to the waitress, and she's all standoffish because she got a $200 tip, okay? Yeah. And he's like, well, we're going to need that money. We're going to need those bills from you. She's like, nope. And he's like, come on, that's evidence. And she's like, it's only evidence if it's the bank robber's money. But right now, it's a fucking tip. And I'm going to use it to pay my mortgage, half of my mortgage, blah, blah, blah. So fuck you. And she fucking walks away. And he's like, damn. He just got put in his place. Alberto walks in. He's like, go talk to that rattlesnake waitress in there, okay? And get that money. And I would expect some resistance. So then we got the brothers driving, and they're talking about Chris Pine's sons. And, it's just, yeah, they're going to be okay, blah, blah, blah. It'll be all right. And then, it's brother shit. They start singing along to the radio, and you get a cool little brother moment. And then they go to a gas station, okay? Chris Pine gets out, and he's like, do you need anything? And he's like, yeah, a Dr. Pepper, and then some Winston Lights, okay? Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, and walks inside. So then this green fucking Challenger drives up, and there's a couple of, bros driving in it. And Ben Foster just, leans over and just starts staring at the driver. A couple of, what do they call them? Meatheads or whatever?
Yeah. Are they Southern?
No, they're,
Frat boys?
yeah, type thing. Okay. Ben Foster's just staring at the driver. And the guy's like, what do you want, old man? What are you staring at? And then Ben Foster just doesn't say shit. He's just staring at him. And he's like, you looking for trouble, motherfucker? Because you found it. And he pulls his gun out, and he's just holding it so he can see it. And Ben Foster's just sitting there staring. And he's like, motherfucker, I'll fucking kick your ass, motherfucker. You fuck with the wrong guy, blah, blah, blah. Ben Foster's just sitting there fucking staring at him. And then all of a sudden, out from behind the driver, who is now beginning to get out of his car to fuck with Ben Foster, Chris Pine just walks up, kicks the fucking shit out of him, knocks the gun out of his hand, fucking beats his head against the car and shit. The guy's down on the ground, and he's just kicking him and punching him in the fucking face and just obliterates the guy, okay? And then he just he's got that guy on the ground, and he just fucking turns around and goes around to the other side of the car to pull the fucking passenger out and start kicking his ass, okay? And he opens the door up, and the guy just immediately starts yelling, he had it coming, man, he had it coming, he had it coming. And Chris Pine's like, he has to calm down a second, and then he's fine. He goes and he gets back into the car, and he gives Ben Foster his bag of shit, and Ben Foster's like, man, what the fuck? This is a Mr. Pibb. He's like, it's all they had. And he's like, only assholes drink Mr. Pibb. And then they're driving away, and Chris Pine goes, well, drink up. So then they go to an Indian casino, okay? It's the Route 66 casino. Mm-hmm. And Ben Foster's like, man, look at the women here. And Chris Pine looks around, and it's all old, pathetic, sad women that basically live there, And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Ben Foster's like, it's cool, man. Have another shot. They'll look good in a little while. So they go to the teller in the casino, and they give her all the cash, and then they get chips, and that's how they're gonna launder the money, basically.
Oh, okay.
And he gives Ben Foster some chips. He's like, don't lose it all. And Ben Foster's he's got all these chips, and he's running away. He's like, suck a D. And Chris Pine is like, what the fuck? He's like, eat my A. He runs off, and he's gambling while Chris is just sitting at the bar. And Chris has this giant pile of chips, okay? By the way, I don't remember their actual names in the movie. But it doesn't matter. So Chris Pine is at the bar, and there's this, hooker comes up, starts talking to him. He's all shy around women now. So Ben is at the poker table, and he's arguing with this Native American guy who's there gambling. He's like, "Are you a Comanche?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm a Comanche. Do you know what that means?" He's like, "What?" It means enemy to everyone. And he's like, "Oh, yeah?" And they're like standing up, like confronting each other. And he's like, "Well, guess what that makes me?" And he's like, "My enemy?" And Ben Foster's like, "Nah, a Comanche." And then the guy like gives up and walks away.
Yeah.
So then the hooker is talking to Chris Pine, and she's at the bar, and she's like, "Take me to your room, yeah. It's okay to need a woman's touch, blah, blah, blah." Then Ben Foster comes up. He's like, "Oh, yeah, look at what's fucking going on here. Listen, bitch, I know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what's your game? You're going to fucking take him to his room, and then, you're going to call your pimp, yeah? And then he's going to come and take all the money? Get the fuck out of here. Oh, you mind if I sample the goods?" And he, like, shoves his hand up her dress, and she's, like, running away from him. "You're fucking crazy." And he's like, "Call me." And they're like, "Screw this." And Chris Pine is like, "How have you managed to stay out of prison as long as you have at this point?" And he's like, "It has not been easy." It's like, "All right, let's get a room." So they're staying at the casino hotel. And Ben Foster is like, "Well, look at you." He's looking at the hotel clerk. She's a hot little chick. And he's like, "Yeah, listen, baby, why don't you come and hang out with me later, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "You are a handful." And he's like, "Yeah, but in your last days in the fucking rest home, you're going to be thinking about me and chuckling." And then it cuts to Chris Pine on his bed in the hotel room with his jacket like covering his face so that he doesn't see Ben Foster in the next bed over fucking the hotel clerk. And she's riding him, and Chris Pine is just like, "Oh, geez." Then we got Jeff and Alberto. They're staying at some roadside motel. And Jeff's fucking making fun of him again. And Alberto is watching, like, church on TV. And Jeff is like, "Man, I would rather fucking watch anything in the world other than this shit. Shouldn't you be out there, like, sending smoke signals and, like, doing rain dances and shit?" And then Alberto's like, "I'm a Catholic, man." He's like, "Man, come on." He's like, in a year's time, it'll be my teasing that you miss the most." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." He's like, "Don't worry, one of those days I'll get old and die or whatever." And then Alberto's like, "Hopefully that's tomorrow." He's like, "Oh, that was a good one." And he's sitting there and he's like getting this like introspective look on his face, like, "Man, this is my last case." And Alberto kind of accused him of trying to draw this out,
Yeah.
before he retires. And he looks at Jeff Bridges. He's like, "Isn't it getting late for you?" And Jeff Bridges is like, Yeah, it is." And he like picks up his 6-pack that he was drinking and he fucking leaves and goes back to his room, I guess. That's when you see Ben Foster fucking the chick. And then it cuts back to Jeff Bridges walking out of his motel room in his sheet only. Okay, he's wearing pants, but he's got his sheet around himself, and he just like walks off into the street. It's fucking weird. So he's like kind of losing it a little bit because of his retirement. So then Alberto finds him, and he's sitting in a chair outside of the motel, and he's like sleeping in the morning. And Alberto's like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" He's like, "I'm practicing for my future, sleeping on the porch." He's like, "Man, you're all fucked up. I feel sorry for you." He's like, "Indians don't feel sorry for cowboys. It's the other way around." So then we got the brothers, and they're meeting with Chris's attorney. Okay, and he's like, "Yeah, man, fucking, this is all you got to do. This is all the money that you owe the bank. Okay, then it'll get out from from under their control. Okay, and then you'll own it outright since your mom left it to you before she died." Because basically, at the moment, all his mom did was leave him the debt. Okay, and he's like, "I just love that you're paying them back with their own money." Okay, and Ben Foster's like, "So you know all about what we're doing. Why the hell are you doing this?" And he's like, "Because they were just like trying to screw his mom over for that land ever since they found oil on it." So yeah, turns out like the stakes are much higher. Okay.
Okay.
He's like, "No, Once you get all that money, it's untraceable. A check from a casino is untraceable. So you take that check, because when they get the money back at the end of the casino trip, they're like, would you like it in cash or a check? He's like, I'll take a check. Made out to who? Texas Midlands Bank. Okay, so it's directly written out to them from this casino. Mm-hmm. So it can't be traced to anyone else. He's like, just remember, come hell or high water, you got to be there Monday morning, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Or else you won't get the land back. And he's like, okay, and have them fax me proof that the lien is forgiven and shit like that. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. So then we got Jeff and Alberto, and they are in a restaurant across from another branch of Texas Midlands Bank that hasn't been hit yet. And they're going to stake it out. Okay? They're in this little restaurant called the T-Bone Cafe, and there's this fucking bitchy-ass waitress who's like all really disgusting looking, and she's like, what don't you want? And Jeff Bridges is all confused. What the fuck? And he's trying to look at the menu, and she's like, listen, honey, we have not had anybody come into this restaurant and order anything but a T-bone steak and a fucking sweet tea or whatever since its inception. Okay, there was some asshole who tried to order trout because he was from New York back in '88, and fuck him. So you're going to order the T-bone steak. Now, do you not want the corn or do you not want the green beans? And fucking Jeff Bridges is just like, I don't want the green beans. And Alberto's like, yeah, me too. So they're like talking about her and how much of a bitch she is. Like, well, one thing's for sure, no one's ever going to rob this place. Then we see the brothers buying a pickup truck with cash from some little buy here, pay here dealer. So you find out that they're going to be taking separate vehicles this time because this is going to be their last day of the robbing banks and shit like that. So then they're both going to make their separate getaways. And Chris goes to visit his ex-wife and his kids. And his ex-wife is like all bitchy. And he gives her a bunch of cash. He's like, here, this is all the child support I owe you. And his son walks in. And she's like, are you, you're selling the ranch ever since she died? And he's like, nah, I'm putting it in a trust. And she's like, what does that mean? He's like, well, that means no one can sell it. She's like, great, something else I got to take care of. So, like, she hates him. Like, he abandoned her with the kids or whatever. I guess so that he could, like, take care of the ranch and his mother. Maybe that's why they got divorced. We don't know. So then his son shows up and he's talking to him. He hands him a beer. And he's like, yeah, listen, the whole ranch is going to go to you guys. They found oil on it. So you're never going to have to worry about money ever again. And he's like, you're going to hear some things about me and your uncle. And I don't want you to be like us, And he's like, what, you didn't do it? He's like, no. We did it, okay? We did every bit of it. But remember, don't be like us. Be different. And he's like, yeah, whatever. He's like, well, you're not going to drink your beer? And he's like, well, you told me not to be like you, and then you offer me a beer. He's like, good boy. So then we see Ben, and he's loading his guns. And Chris is like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Yeah, I don't want this shit. And he's like, nah, man, it's just a precaution or whatever. We're in 2 cars next time. Don't worry. I'll take the guns with me. It's fine. Then we got Jeff and Alberto. And they're still at the T-Bone Cafe, and they're outside, and they're waiting. And Alberto makes this big speech about how the white man took land from the Indians back in the day. And he's like, yeah, well, the thing is, it's still happening now. Only it's not armies that are doing it. It's them. And he points at the bank. So it's like a little social commentary there. Mm. Then the brothers are sitting there, and they're talking about women because Ben Foster's reminiscing about the hotel clerk. This gives you, as the moviegoer, a hint that, he might be expecting to die, pretty soon, as well as him, like, loading all those guns, right?
Yeah.
And Ben Foster's like, this is a good thing you're doing, man, to Chris. And Chris is like, yeah, we're doing it, man, together. And then he says, go easy on the tellers tomorrow, okay? He's like, yeah, sure. And then it's that evening, and it's sunset, and the brothers are, like, half drunk, like, one last little time together, and it shows them, like, frolicking and kind of fighting, like, out over the land. You can see, all this sunset, fucking rolling farmland behind them and everything. Mm-hmm. Sun's about to go down. Then we see Jeff Bridges again, and he's just still sitting there, staking it out. And then it's early morning, and Chris is waking up Ben, and all he does is, like, shake him a little bit, and then Ben, like, fucking snaps awake and fucking attacks him. Okay, like, because he's been in prison.
Yeah.
And Chris Pine just like, oh, fuck, it fucking runs away. And then Ben, like, he comes to, and he's like, oh, well, good morning. Like, it's just, like, part of waking up for him. Then they eat real quick, and then they get in the 2 cars, and they're headed for this bank. And they get to it, and the doors are chained shut, and they're padlocked. like the bank is like realizing what's happening, so they close down that branch, and they're like, "Fuck, man, what do we do?" And he's like, "Oh, we got to go to Coleman now, which is another town with a branch with a Midlands bank in it." And that is where Jeff Bridges is. They're on their way there, and then they pull over, and Ben Foster is like, "No, we got to hit the one in Post." He's like, "No, man, that one's too big. Let's go to that one. Let's go to Coleman, and if we don't get enough, then we'll go hit the one in Post." He's like, "Nah, man, we need to do this all in one shot." He's like, "There's going to be too many fucking people there, and it's going to be like lunchtime, okay? No, we're not robbing a bank at fucking lunchtime. No." He's like, "Yeah, man, we're going to do it." And then we see Jeff Bridges, and he's arguing with Alberto about, like, "Here, I figured this out, what's going on. This one was hit, and then this one was hit, okay? They're only hitting these banks. The other one, the one that wasn't a Texas Midlands bank, I think the smart brother didn't know about that one, okay? So their next one is going to be Post. That's where they're going to go." So then we cut to the brothers in Post, and yeah, it's fucking big. And Chris Pine is like, "It's too big." And Ben Foster's just like, "That's what she said." So then they fucking run in, and he's like, "We're going to get more money, don't worry." The run in is totally full of people, and he's like, "On the ground." This is like the first time they've robbed a bank that was like full of people. It's like, "On the ground, everybody open your drawers, blah, blah, blah." Okay, so they're like doing your classic movie bank robbery that's full of customers. And there's a girl on the ground who's like texting, "The bank is being robbed." And then there's a guard that sneaks out, okay? And while Ben Foster is in behind the desk with the tellers, getting them to put all their loose bills in the bag, this guard sneaks out and starts shooting, okay? Ben Foster just turns around and fucking shoots him a couple times and kills him. And Chris Pine kind of freaks out. And then there's another local guy who's on the ground. He was a customer at the bank. He's got a gun on him. And he gets up and he starts shooting at Chris Pine. Chris Pine starts shooting at him. Doesn't hit him because he's like, "Oh, I don't really know what to do." And then Ben Foster just turns around, fucking shoots that guy dead. So those guys are both dead. They get the money and then they run outside. And outside, there are a whole bunch of other local Texans that are just out there, I guess, like waiting for their wives or friends to come out of the bank, and they all just start shooting at them. Everybody's got guns. Okay? God bless Texas. And as they're running away, the pickup truck is just getting filled with bullets, you can hear Ben Foster yelling to Chris, "That conceal and carry permit sure does complicate a bank robbery." And then Jeff and Alberto are driving, and they get the call, "Yep, somebody just hit the bank in Post." And Jeff Bridges is like, "Yeah, I told you I was right. Woohoo!" He's like, "Let me get a nice Comanche howl out of you, motherfucker." And then Alberto like breaks his like straight man character. He's like, "Woohoo!" So they're heading there to do it. And then we cut back to the brothers, and we find out that Chris is actually hit. He actually got shot in the gut.
Oh.
So then they're speeding down some country highway, and they have got like 6 or 7 fucking pickup trucks behind them of these local guys that are like, "Let's get them." Okay, they're just following them down the road. And Ben Foster just like fucking pulls the truck over, and then away back they stop, and they all get out and they point their guns like they're going to take care of this. They're going to stop these bank robbers. And then Ben Foster just like goes and he opens up a gun case and he comes out and he's got a fully automatic machine gun, and he just starts shooting at them, just filling all of their cars with bullets and shit until every one of them like gives up and they all fucking drive away. Like Ben Foster just took care of it. And he's telling Chris Pine, wrap it up because he's shot. And he's like making him wrap his wound in duct tape. He's like shot in the belly, okay? And we all know, like everybody in Hollywood is like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, that's a death sentence." So then they drive and they get to the other car, and they're going to part ways now. And Ben Foster's like, "Man, I got to give it to you. Your plan, robbing these banks for the cash and then cleaning the money at a fucking casino. Dude, it worked. Your plan worked all the way, brother. Fucking, you are a smart motherfucker.
Yeah.
Every step of the way." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks, man." And I think he gave him some money, and he was like, "All right, I love you. Don't be stupid." He's like, "I love you too, man. All right." And then they both are like, "Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself." And then they fucking drive away, and it's the last time they see each other. And Ben Foster ends up being the one who gets chased by the cops because he's driving a pickup truck full of bullet holes.
Yeah.
So he knows what's happening. And so he just starts like singing along to the radio and shit, just like his last hurrah. Okay. And then Chris is like, he's driving, and he's looking at his gunshot, and it's all bloody and shit. And he's wiping sweat off of his head. So Ben starts leading the cops. Okay. Leads them out into the middle of nowhere. And then there's just this big, huge, steep ass embankment. Okay. And the cops that are following him are being tailed by Jeff and Alberto. So he drives the car up the truck up an embankment, and he sets the e-brake, and then he pulls out this can of gasoline, and he fills the whole cab with it, okay? And then he just lights it, gets out, picks his guns out, and then takes the e-brake off, so the truck just rolls backwards down into where all the cops are sitting there waiting, and it fucking explodes, and it like blows up a couple of their cars. And then he goes and he just gets up on a ridge, and he pulls out his rifle and just starts shooting at them. So they're all like hiding behind their other trucks and shit. You know, Jeff Bridges is like, oh, damn, man, this guy knows what he's doing. Fucking, well, we're going to need SWAT, okay, and we're going to need a helicopter out here, because he's out here. He's up on that ridge with a rifle. Somebody's like, oh, yeah, there's only one of them. You know, the other one's not in the truck. He's like, only one? Well, it must have been, you know, we must be missing the smart one. You know, and Alberto's like, maybe the locals killed him, you know, earlier on. He's like, yeah, well, okay, if they killed one of them, it must be the smart one, because this guy is fucking crazy. And then right then, Alberto gets shot in the fucking head. Yeah, man. Goes right through his cowboy hat into his head. And, like, there's, like, brains in his cowboy hat and shit. And Jeff Bridges is, like, picking him up. He pulls him behind the car. And Jeff Bridges, like, has a moment where he, like, loses it a little bit. And he's just like, God damn it. And at that point, the local guys that were following him, they come down the road. And Jeff Bridges runs at him. He's like, no, back your trucks up, back your trucks up. This guy's shooting and shit. All right. Now, how well do you guys know this land? And they're like, real well, man. He's like, can you get me behind that motherfucker? He's like, yeah, come with me. So then he's riding with this one local guy. Then we see that Chris, who is shot in the gut and bleeding all over his car, the road ahead of him has got a roadblock. And he's like, shit. So, you know, he slows down a little bit, enough to, like, put a jacket on over his wound and everything, and he covers up all the blood. And he just goes and tries to get through the roadblock. And the cop is like, yeah, where you headed? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to such and such, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, well, you're taking the long way. He's like, yeah, well, you guys have all the other roads blocked, you know, so going the only way I can. He's like, yeah, all right, give me your license. So he's sitting there waiting. And while he's waiting, man, it is tense as shit. Like, all the other cops, they're, like, looking at his license, and they're running it on the computer and stuff and looking over at him and everything. And he's just sitting there, like, sweating. He's just sweating. And the guy comes over to him, and he's still holding his license, and he just goes, sir. And Chris Pine just fucking looks up at him. And the guy just goes, have a good day, sir. And he gives him his license back. And he's like, oh, whew, okay. So then he goes to start his car up, and it fucking doesn't start. But then it does, and so he drives away. And once he gets far enough away, he stops, and he, like, uses some shit to clean his gunshot wound and everything, and he's dressing it up a little bit. But you, as the viewer, are like, according to Hollywood, gut shots, you know, he's gonna die. He's getting to a fucking hospital. And then Jeff and the local that's giving him his ride, they come up behind Ben Foster, and they're on another ridge up behind him. They're like 500 yards away. The local is like, he's all like, you know, gun happy, and he's like, why don't you let me take the shot, sir, because you look pretty shaken up. You know, and besides, it's my gun. And then Jeff Bridges is like, no, he's mine. So then it shows Ben, and he's there sitting on a rock with his rifle, and he's just like shooting at the cops down there, and he's like, yeah, look at me. Lord of the Plains. That's me. And then he's like just kind of looking around, and then he looks to his right, and he sees some dude really far away up on another ridge pointing a fucking rifle at him, and then he fucking takes one in the head. Yeah, he like saw Jeff Bridges before Jeff Bridges shot him. And so then he falls over dead. And Jeff Bridges just lets go and just starts fucking crying. You know, because he was so like fucked up from losing his partner and everything. Like he could finally let go now that he avenged him. And then it cuts to a shot of Ben Foster just slumped over dead on this ridge, and there's a rattlesnake like at his feet, like. I don't know what that was supposed to mean. Like, if he hadn't killed him, the rattlesnake would have bit him. I don't know. So then we got Chris Pine, and he is back in another casino, maybe the same casino. And he's at the bar, and he's got his giant pile of chips with him, okay? And he's listening to the news, and the news is all about his brother. And how, you know, he was a bank robber, and blah, 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 and he was shot and killed by such and such Jeff Bridges, and, you know, so it's all over. And then it just shows him driving off down some lonely highway. And then it shows him at the bank, okay, paying off the loans. And the bank manager, like, realizes, he knows the gravity of the situation. He's like, wow. And he's looking at this check, and he's like, you sure are a pretty lucky guy. You know, he won all this at the casino, huh?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. Just in the nick of time, too. Yeah. So here we go. He's like, you know, forgive the lien and everything. And the manager, he's like trying to like stall. And he's like, well, this is going to take some time, you know. And he's like, yeah, I need you to fax proof over to this guy over here. And he's like, oh, your attorney? And he's like, yeah. Well, that's a little strange, you know. He's like, yeah, well, you know, I'm just trying to make sure. He's like, well, this is going to take some time. He's like, I got all day. So then it shows that he faxed over proof, and now he is the sole owner of the land. But remember, he's going to put it all into a trust. And his attorney in the previous scene had been like, hey, man, you really want to cover your tracks? And he tells him to do this. So then Chris Pine is like, hey, excuse me, one more thing. And that's as he's about to leave the bank, and the manager's like, yeah. And he's like, do you handle trusts? So he's like, gonna put all the land in a trust to be controlled by Midlands Bank that he paid off with money that he robbed from Midlands Bank. So it's like, no one would ever do that, right? So it's like the ultimate cover your tracks thing.
Yeah.
Also, Chris Pine is apparently fine from his gunshot. Okay, it was never shown again. But anyway, he's like, it's a pleasure doing business with you. And then we see Jeff Bridges, and he's at like Texas Ranger Central. And he's talking to some lady, and he's like, yeah, you know, let me see the file on Ben Foster, you know. And he's looking at it, he's like, oh, he shot his dad. Shit. You know, and then like petty theft, petty robbery, blah, blah, blah. So he's a career criminal. He's like, what about his brother? And she's like, no one can connect his brother to this. His brother's never been to jail. He's only been in court once for his divorce. Okay, his fingerprints aren't on anything. And, you know, he's not a suspect. And, you are retired, so you need to just let it go, Jeff Bridges. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And she's like, yeah, you know, they found oil at the farm. He's like, oh, yeah, really? Like, yeah, so, you know, if we were to arrest him, the bank who manages the trust would be losing money, okay? And they're about to be pulling like 200,000 barrels, like a week of oil out of that land. They're going to lose so much money if this all goes to shit. So that bank is now going to protect him. And he's like, oh, all right. So then he's at home, and he's watching TV, and he's all sitting there. He's like bothered. Like it's getting to him. So then he pulls his gun out of his lockbox, and he puts on his hat, and he leaves. And then he goes to the farm. And at the farm is Chris Pine. And Chris Pine is waiting there for him. He saw somebody driving up, and he just pulled out a rifle and was just standing there waiting. Okay, and Jeff Bridges is like, do you know who I am? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm the one who killed your brother. He's like, yeah, I know. You know, you're trespassing here because you're not a cop anymore. You're retired. So if you fuck with me, you're fucking dead. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, you mind if I sit? He's like, yeah, go ahead. So then they sit there and talk for a while. And he offers him a beer. He's like, sure, I'm not on duty anymore. And he's like, yeah, sure is a nice breeze you got out here. How did you do it? Well, never mind. I'll figure out how. Why? Why did you do this? That's what I need to know. Look at all this fucking oil you got out here. You know? Why don't you fucking tell me why 4 fucking people, including my partner, had to die so that you could steal money that isn't yours when you got all this fucking oil? And like Jeff Bridges didn't understand that it was all like in hock at the bank. Mm-hmm. He's like, help me understand why that is. And then Chris Pine is like, you got family? He's like, my partner did. And Chris Pine's like, yeah, we've been poor for generations, you know. Like my whole family, always we've been poor. It's like a fucking disease, okay, spreading. And you know what? Not my boys, okay? My boys are never gonna have to worry about that shit ever. So you know what? Fuck you. And I've never killed anyone before in my life, but if you want me to start with you, let's do it. And then right then, his ex-wife and the kids show up. And they're talking, and he's like, yeah, don't worry, you know, I'll be back to finish the front and everything. And then Jeff Bridges is like, you don't live here at the farm? He's like, nah, they do. I'm just here helping fix up the house. This is their house. And Jeff Bridges is like, oh. And he's like, but, you know, I rent a small house in town. If you want to finish this conversation at a later date, you know, I'm anxious for this to be over, for it to be done. And Jeff Bridges is like, well, it's never going to be done. This is going to haunt you forever. But don't worry, you won't be alone, because it's going to haunt me too. And he's like, yeah, if you come and see me, you come and talk to me later, maybe I'll give you some peace. And then Jeff Bridges is like, yeah, maybe I'll give you some. And it was like, whoa, it's like tense ass shit. And then Jeff Bridges gets in his car and drives away, and it's just this big wide shot of all the oil pumps pumping, and Jeff Bridges like, didn't get him.
Oh,
He drives away, and then we got the credits.
that's it.
That's it. Hell or High Water. There you have it.
All right.
What do you think?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
Someone online says, this is a film criticizing the rich made by billionaires and starring millionaires.
Yeah. Chris Pine and Ben Foster, man. They are a good duo. I enjoyed this very much because of those two.
Yeah. Chris Pine seemed like he was playing against type.
Yeah. Yeah, he was good. Jeff Bridges, gotta love him. Plays the same character in every movie he's in, but it's a good one.
From your dead-on impression, it seems like he was playing the same guy from R.I.P.D.
Chicken tikka. So there you go.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Take care.
See ya. Like that ice cream truck.
Yeah, a lot of material for a stinger at the end of the episode.
This one?
Yeah,
I love stingers. I love when you do them.
that's going to be the stinger.